Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so here's what it looks like. I'll just put this on a different view. Okay. So this is a Bacana Institute. One of the founders was Margaret Wheatley and Deborah Fries, and there's a whole lot of people who were part of kind of rediscovering these patterns and systems of working together and what they look like for us now. So I'll go through it in a couple of different ways and explain it with my laser. So the theory is that it is about when a system nears its peak, right? The new system starts to be born. So it's about an old system peaking and dying and a new system being born. So sometimes people will drop out or walk out, and some people actually can't walk out of that current system. So the four areas that I'm going to mainly focus on is part of what Berkana Institute named. So that's here with the, so we've got name, connect, nourish, and illuminate. So we're going to look at those. And then there's the websites there, which you can all get the slides. They'll all be online this week, actually. So if we look at this, that at some point in a system's life cycle, new ways of doing or being will arise. Like that's just natural. That's natural that that happens. The innovation will feel disruptive to the old system, and it will try and pull new ideas back into line. So I find it easier to tell you by story. So if we look here at, this is the old system or the dominant system. So one I like to use is telecommunications. So let's think back here when there was operators sitting in their little offices, in their rooms, and they had the plugs. You know, you'd ring the operator and they go, who do you want to talk to? And they plug you into the person down the road. At some point, that was innovation at its finest. You know, that's when people go, wow, I can use this thing in my house and someone can plug me in to my neighbor down the road. So that was here. So as this system started to peak, this was when we started to see, hey, Kate, this is when we started to see we didn't need the operators anymore. People had telephones on their walls in the kitchen. You could direct dial. So things were starting to shift and happen. As this happened as well, and then of course, imagine like those first little mobile phones, the Nokia bricks come in as well. As this is all starting to happen down here, this is declining. This system, old system of operators, is starting to crumble. So what happens here is that there's still operators over here, the very last few, they still need to get paid. They've still got a job. Some people might opt to retire or move on to another job or whatever it might be, but they're still here. Someone needs to hold that space for them. So we've got here, in this one, it's called the stabilizers. In the previous ones, it's called steward. So it's stewarding that space. So you've got people here who say, looking back this way, they're saying, it's okay, we see you, we've got you, it's all right, we can help you come along to here or make decisions about where you need to go. While others are continuing on into the decline of this system. So let's say there's mobile phones that are starting to happen. In this area, we've got hospice work or a role of a hospicer. I also think of this as like triage. You know, it's that point where things are really starting to collapse or decay. And it's like, what do we need to do? Like, what's coming next for this? The next area here is this composting area. And I love that most people, when they're walking through this, they talk about standing in the shit. But shit is where things grow from, right? So compost is good. So when we think of this, even though it is the death of some things, compost is a good space because we're thinking of what do we need to compost and let go of but what's the good stuff that we want to take with us? So it's not just about death and dying. It is about that growing and nurturing space as well. We find quite often in our open registration workshops, librarians love this space. They go, yep, that's me. That's me. Totally me. I hold the knowledge. I am the keeper of the knowledge. I've got all of this here. Come and see me and we can talk about what we need to throw away or keep. So librarians love hanging out there. So this is when this old system is coming down and dying, right? Now, at the same time, when this is starting to happen, let's say with the mobile phones here, and I remember my father's first mobile phone actually was one that, it was like a brick on he carried over his shoulder and had the, you know, the big handle like that. That was innovation. That was amazing. And then the little Nokia bricks and the more mobile ones started to come out, and then there were smartphones, of course, and it's, you know, moved on. So in that space, that's these guys, that's these pioneers. While things are starting to die and decay in the old system, they see something's going on. In the other diagram, they're called the innovators. So the innovators are starting to, do some really cool stuff with experimenting. They're allowing that innovation to kind of come up and bubble away and happen. Quite often, they're the weirdos, the fringe dwellers, the ones that people go, I don't know what you're doing. And that's okay. I love being one of those weirdos. So those the pioneers or the innovators are the ones who are having a crack. They go, yep, I'm going to have a go at this. I can see that this might be something. As it shifts down into this new system, now remember, we've still got up the top here, the steward is still holding this space for these ones to come along and make decisions, for this to die. The innovators are happening. And down here, we've got the innovators are starting to connect. So that's where you start to see, say with new tech innovations or something like that, they start to connect and join their own dots. People who are coding in the same way will start to connect and join up. So they might not be a well-rounded network yet, but they're starting to connect. They're starting to find that they're not just a solo weirdo. There's other weirdos they can join up with, and they can have these discussions that they could look at what's next, what's coming up. So this is, like the other one said, this is where we name it. We're naming that something different is happening. Something is coming along here. And then we're starting to connect. So we're starting to connect networks up. And this is the emergent system down here. So we're connecting those kind of connected the dots, singular innovators that are starting to join up, are starting to form communities of practice. They're starting to nourish and grow the influence on the system. So no longer are they just these little innovators up here, or starting to just have, you know, maybe it's a weekend passion that they get around a table with some others who are innovating. This is where it's really starting to influence the system and people are taking notice. So here with that nourish, you've got that community of practice. When we shift up to here to this system of influence where we're illuminating, that's where we can really influence the system. And I think of illumination at this point in two ways. One is we're illuminating this way. We're illuminating towards the future. We're saying, hey, here's what's going on. But the other thing is looking back this way. Once we've come through here and nourished this community of practice, and we're starting to do things a bit differently, shifting up this way and being an illuminator, there's still people over here. They're still over here in the old system. And it doesn't mean it's good or bad. Everyone has a role to play. So think of the stewards here. Let's say Michelle and I did one of these in Charters Towers, which is kind of mid-north Queensland. And the people who stood at that steward space, when we asked them to stand where you feel you are in your system right now, the people who stood there were CEOs and managers, people who were like, I need to hold this space while our old system is dying and the new one is being born. I must hold it. I've got responsibilities. This is my role. So what happens here with this transition period is once people have gone through this new system, gone through this emergence, feeling more comfortable and confident and proficient and efficient. So those community of practice is starting to really build up to influence the system. Then our role is to say back to these other guys here, we're over here. Look, we've built you a bridge. Come across. Come join us. Come be with us here. We've got systems set up, and they can step across that bridge and be part of that new system of influence that is there. Now you'll notice in this one, and it's not in the other one, this is why I wanted to use these two different pictures, we've got here these outliers in these edge cases. So these outliers are sitting there, and there's a reason for them as well. Once we've got that old system that's decaying and the new one that's being born, this new one that has been born becomes the old declining system. And a new one is already starting to happen with a group of new outliers. So it's this constant old to new and old to new. And everyone's got a role to play. So as it says down there with the two loops model, supports an understanding that disruption is an essential feature of evolution, and that there are worthy roles to play for members in moving from the old into a new paradigm. So all of these roles, right back through the old system and through the new, all have very specific roles to play and meanings. The other thing that we found in stepping people through this, and I'll go back to the CEOs and managers in this steward place up here, where often they will stand. We've had people stand in this space and burst into tears. And not because it's a terrible, sad place to be, but because they can locate themselves. Instead of feeling like they had to hold it all and the pressure was all on their shoulders, they see that there's roles still down here that some of their staff are doing. They see there's roles right down through here that people are undertaking. So once they can see themselves in that role, it eases it. And it's been really fulfilling for a lot of people. So even people in this new system, by kind of noticing, aha, I thought actually I was one of these weirdos here, but I've got a community of practice forming. I'm further along than I thought. So you can locate yourself in this pattern for different things. So this could be our system right now, our global system of what is happening to the economy, to the health systems, to everything. We can locate ourselves in this system. Or it could be in our organisations or our family, wherever it is. And a new one will arise. There'll be something else that will start to happen. We're certainly noticing with the conversations Michelle and I have been hosting with all these conversations the last few weeks, that the voice that is getting stronger and stronger and that people are starting to connect and link up about is, what do we do now to make sure the new normal doesn't bring all the old shit from the compost? And that voice is getting stronger and stronger. So if we think of it like this, that if we're the pioneers, and this is the community workers, the counselors, the therapists, the people who have been seeing this coming anyway. We mightn't have even known it was COVID. We just knew there's something coming. There's got to be a shift. There's going to be economic collapse. There's going to be something. We know something's coming. We've got young people who can't even buy houses anymore. Something's going to crack. So if we were there then, we're now starting to shift into here. We're starting to form our networks. We're starting to dive deeper into conversations. We will start over the next few months even stronger to form these communities of practice. So then we have a role to influence the system. How do we illuminate, going back to this one, how do we illuminate what is going on, and how can we do this together? Because as we go up to that, there's another new system of influence that is going to be born. So I've got a couple of YouTube clips in there that are 7 to 15 minutes long that you can also watch. There's a lot in there. I don't want to keep talking about it. Like I said, I'd rather the discussion. And I love this quote from Margaret Wheatley. Whatever the problem, community is the answer. So whatever it is that we are looking at or we want to address or solve or discuss or innovate around or whatever it is, community is the answer. And that's where we need to go. And like Michelle was saying about local government, they're learning that. They're having a big steep learning curve, and they're going to be learning that deeper than they thought before. And then we won't have Tammy and others who are in local government feeling like they're those outliers or the ones who are saying, hey, but community. And they won't be alone anymore. So yeah, that's kind of part of our role and how we strengthen these communities together. So I will stop.